to play 3. We're just chugging right along. Can you believe it? After this, you're gonna be over halfway done. It's crazy. But I didn't go easy on you this week. This week, you have another one of my absolute favorite stitch patterns in Tunisian. It's called Paranal Lace. If you've seen it before in my stitch dictionary or somewhere else, I just adore this one. It's a mix of lots of different things in Tunisian, and it goes a little crazy. So first off, this is the week that you're just gonna relax and be like, okay, we're trying something new. And it is. There's a lot going on this week. But I know you have the skill set to do this. Absolutely you do. So follow along with me. We're going to go step by step by step. So I think the best parts to start is at the stitch diagram, don't you? Come join me. Let's go take a look at what we got going on. As you can see, we have, the mini version of our play 2. Like I said, make sure you get it blocked out. You don't have to block it now, but after you're all done, make sure you have block it, because you can tell it looks totally different than last week when it's all smushed together. You want to block that out to see all these lines. All right. What we're doing is, as you know, we're going to be adding on another section if you looked at the schematic. If we look at the stitch diagram, though, now we got lots of different stuff going on. You always know there's lots of stuff when there's lots of things going on in the symbol key. If we take a look, what we have is things that you know already. Tunisian simple stitch, Tunisian reverse stitch. These two guys, no problem, you already know them. The extended Tunisian simple stitch, well, we did that before, at the beginning. We know this guy. We know how to do Tunisian around the horizontal bars going in the chain space. We know that. We know working loops off as normal. We know chains. And it looks like, again, we have that yarn over pull through 2 loops, even though, with the 2 stitches, because it's at the end of the row. We did that last week. So let's talk about the new things. We have some purl stitches, and we have a 2 double crochet cluster. Yeah, we're going to be doing regular crochet in our Tunisian to give it a totally different look. We have that going on. Then we have the yarn over pull through 3 loops. I know when we did it before, it was 4 loops, but this 3 loop thing means it's happening at the end of the row. So let's look at it at the end of the row. We have the yarn over pull through 2 loops on your hook happening from last week. That's the same. But we also have this yarn over pull through 3 loops. I know that it was yarn over pull through 4 loops when they were in the middle of our project, but they're not the middle, they're at the end. So again, we're going to be decreasing as we return, and we'll be increasing when we come out. Also have a lot of different things going on. So let's take a look within the pattern, what we have going on. You'll notice that we have these clusters that we're going to have to learn, okay? And they don't happen all the time. We do a cluster, and then you'll see here, remember on the forward pass, that's the lower half of your work. On the forward pass, what happens is you have a stitch like a purl, then a nose stitch, then a stitch, and then a nose stitch. That means we're skipping stitches. So you're not putting a stitch in each one. We'll make up for this by all of these chains. So these chains are going to put a hole in your work. We learned on play 1 that you could put a stitch in each, right? And then smush them together on your return pass and add chains on either side to add back in. Well, here we're going to skip a stitch and then add those stitches back in on the return. You could do it either way. There's a lot of different techniques that are going on here. This is, the next level, because I know you guys are ready for this. So we have a lot of different things going on, which means that this is the week that you need to pay attention on your forward pass and your return pass. These is not the time to take a break. This is not going to be the greatest time to watch Netflix. This is when you're going to need to pay attention. Eventually, it'll come and you'll get it and it'll be relaxing. But it takes a while. Like this takes a little bit of brain processing. You'll see that coming back when we are ready to start our 3 rows of Tunisian reverse stitch, we kind of need to fill it in. This is why we're using these going around the bars. This is the only reason that we have these guys. This kind of evens everything out before we can put another stripe in. But that's kind of enough of looking ahead. So let's take a look together. I think everything will be clear while we walk through it. Starting on row 1, we have 2 extended simple stitches. But remember, the loop on your hook counts as a stitch. So all you need to do is chain 1 to get started. And then when you're watching, all of these are going in that first stitch because we are increasing as we go. The other increase is going to happen with this chain. There's a lot happening. The best way to do it is just to go step by step with me and step by step through the written directions. So that's what we're going to do. Just, you know me, I like to kind of explain how increases and decreases and what we're doing is happening, but it gets a little bit overwhelming. I think it's a lot easier when you see it in action. Okay, we're going to start with a chain 1. This counts as our first Tunisian extended stitches. Then we're going to put another one in our first bar because we are increasing. So all we're going to do is insert our hook like a Tunisian simple stitch and chain 1. So we'll have 2 extended stitches on my hook. Now I'm going to do a purl. Give ourselves some yarn to work with. Now I'm going to do a purl stitch, and all that a purl is you move your yarn to the front. You can see with me, I put my yarn on my hook, insert my hook, I unwrap it, yarn over from behind, and then pull up a loop. Don't worry, I'm going to show that again to you. Continuing in the pattern, I skip this stitch and I do a double crochet cluster in this one. So it's a yarn over, you're going to insert your hook. Now, you can just insert your hook into the stitch as you were going to do a Tunisian simple stitch, but I like to anchor mine a little bit more because this has a little bit of more give to it. There's doing a little bit more stuff. So I'm going to insert it into the vertical bar and a horizontal bar. You don't have to. You don't have to anchor it like that if you don't want to. I just like to do it so I have more to work with. And I pulled up a loop. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2 loops on my hook. That's like one leg of our cluster. Yarn over, insert our hook into the same space, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through two loops on my hook. So I have 2 legs on my hook. Now I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2. Now I finally finished off that whole cluster. Again, we're going to do it again. Skip the next stitch. I do a purl. So for me, I yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch as I was going to do a Tunisian simple stitch. I unwind that yarn over and then yarn over from behind and pull through. Skip the next stitch, a cluster in the next one. Let's walk through it again. Yarn over, insert my hook. I'm going to insert it into the vertical strand and the horizontal strand at the same time. So I have a nice anchor. Yarn over, pull through 2. Do it again, yarn over. Insert my hook into the vertical and horizontal strand. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Then I'm going to yarn over, pull through the next 2. And we're going to repeat this across. Now, with purls, if this is your first time doing a purl, the other way you could do a purl is you could drop your yarn. And for us, remember, we're skipping the next stitch. Go into the next one. Then yarn over from behind and pull up a loop. The whole key, if I take this out, the whole key is to get this yarn to cross on top of that stitch. So whatever is the easiest way for you to do it, go ahead and do it. I'll show you how I like to do it the best. There's many different ways of doing these purl stitches. Do whatever feels natural to you. I'm just going to show you the way I like to do it the most. Skip the next stitch, we'll do a cluster. Think of these just like you're doing a regular double crochet cluster. with its 2 legs. Then you yarn over and you pull through those last 2 legs. So now here's my purl stitch again. I'm going to yarn over, skip the next stitch, go into the next one like I'm going to do a Tunisian simple stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. So let's do the cluster again. Yarn over, insert my hook into the next vertical and horizontal strand, yarn over, pull up a loop, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert my hook into the same space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, then yarn over, pull through 2. There's a lot going on, right? There's a lot of steps to each of these. This is why you want to take a little time to pay attention. It will get easier, I promise you. Okay, here's how I like to do my purls. I yarn over, I insert my hook into the stitch, then I unwind the yarn over, and I yarn over from behind. So it makes that cross. Doing it this way, I never have to have my ball of yarn leave my hands, and I like that. And I yarn over, pull through. All right. That's pretty much the only reason I do my purls that way. You can grab your yarn. Some people like to grab it from up above. You know, they'll twist it from up here, they'll hold it up here. So they'll hold it up here, go into the stitch, then go around the post like that. Totally fine. I want you to do what feels natural for you. You'll get into a rhythm, I promise, of what feels natural. Now we're getting down to the last couple of stitches here. I know at the last couple stitches I'm going to do a cluster in the last 3. So I do a cluster, then I do a Tunisian simple stitch that's extended. So that's where you insert your hook, pull up a loop, then chain 1, and I do it again. Insert into the last stitch, pull up a loop, chain 1. All right, so when you're done, remember you have an unusual number of loops on your hook, because don't forget, we skipped a bunch of stitches in between. So when I want you to count your loops on your hook, you have a lot of things going on. 1, you added 2 stitches at the beginning of this pass. 2, you've skipped, let's look, we've skipped all of these stitches in between. There's a lot going on. So that number is going to look like a funny number, right? We're used to having the same number over and over again. This one is going to look funny. Don't worry, you haven't done it wrong. It's the skipping of the stitches that can mess you up and the adding. So it's just kind of like, okay, I'm going to trust the pattern. This is what it is. Now on our return pass, we even everything out. This is where we're going to add a chain space on either side of the clusters, or you can think of it as we added chain space after each cluster or after each purl going all the way across. All right, we're going to go through this part slow too. The first one is we need to decrease 2 stitches. We added 2 stitches here. We need to decrease 2 stitches here. So I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3. That decreased all those stitches together. Great. Now you yarn over, pull through 2 that went through that purl, chain 1. Yarn over, pull through 2 that went through that cluster, chain 1. Yarn over, pull through 2, went through the purl, chain 1. Continue it across. Yarn over, pull through 2, chain 1. The way I like to look at it is I am pulling through the stitch, then I'm chaining 1. Then I'm pulling through the stitch, then I'm chaining 1, is the way I like to look at it. Otherwise, what I find, I'll get ahead of myself and, you know, did I pull through 1 or did I pull through 2? And then you get in your head. Instead of it looking at like that, look at it as chain 1, pull through the stitch, chain 1, pull through the stitch. So when we get to the end here, you're going to chain 1 because we just went through a purl. Then we get to the last 2 stitches, we pull through 2, pull through 2. We work those last 2 off as normal because only after your clusters and after your purls is where you need to add or decrease. All right, now the only nice part is after you do row 1, row 2, 3, and 4 are exactly the same. And they're really not that different from row 1. Basically what's going to happen is whenever you have a purl stitch, you're going to put a cluster in it. Whenever you have a cluster, you're going to put a purl stitch in it. When you get to the end is the only time where you have to go into the space because there's not a stitch. It's just a chain space. But otherwise, the working it off is the same as how you worked it off in row 1. Let's go through it just so you can see it. But I want you to know that you now have all the skills of how to do it you have. I know it feels overwhelming. Trust me. I understand purls are not everybody's favorite. I understand clusters are a new and different thing. But if you've done it in crochet, you can do it here. And I know you're working one thing and you're working another thing. It's a lot. I get it. But that's why we put in the middle week. Kind of think of it as like we got some super unusual stuff coming right when you're ready because you're all primed. You've been going, and I now know you're ready for this information. And you can just trust me. It's going to be really gorgeous. All right, let's do another row. To get started, we need to add 2 stitches. So we chain 1. This will be our first Tunisian extended stitch. Now we're going to go into our very first stitch and chain 1. In the very next stitch, we'll do a purl. This stitch is a purl. Don't worry about any of your chain spaces. You're going to totally ignore them. You're only going into the purls and the clusters now, okay? So all the way across, ignore your chain spaces until you get to the very last one, okay? We'll do a cluster. So I'm going to do a cluster the same way. I'm grabbing 2 strands to have it anchored. So I'm doing cluster in this one. Then I'm going to do a purl in this one. Now I'm going to do a cluster in this one. And I'm going to continue that across. Remember, you know how to do these stitches after doing row 1. The main part is just taking your time and going step by step. So in this case, you know, usually I say if you don't want to do a purl, do something else. I really need you to do a purl. What happens is you'll see, let me do a few more, is that by putting the yarn in the front, it extends the lines that you're going to get. So it exaggerates your strands of yarn and it gives you kind of a zigzag effect. Instead of these, it would, if we just did a Tunisian simple stitch here, we would get an exaggerated straight line, and that's not what we want. We kind of want this chevron zigzag that happens in it. And it's a great excuse to have, you know, a little fun. But I know they're not everyone's favorite. That's why there's not a ton of them. So when, the other thing you should keep on the lookout is when I'm yarning over, I'm always yarning from the back to the front. And when I do my purl, I'm yarning over from the front to the back before I insert my hook to unwind. That's one thing that can trip people up when they're kind of doing it the way I do it. But again, please do these purls the way that feels natural to you. You don't have to do it the way I do it. So again, the trick to mine is I will yarn over from the front, then unwind to wrap around. It feels a little funny, I know. All right, we're finally down to the last 3 stitches. So I'm putting a cluster in the last purl stitch. And now I'm down to a chain space and my decrease. So in I go into my chain space and chain 1. You're used to doing those from play 1. So again, I got down to my last purl stitch. I put a cluster. Then I have a last chain space. This is the only time I'm going into the chain space, pulling up a loop, chain 1, that's going around the bars with the chain 1. Then I'm going into my last stitch, chaining 1. When you go into your last stitch, you can go under all 3 of these bars if you want to pull up your loop. You can just go into the last stitch if you want. Wherever you go, just try to do it the same every time. It does not matter where you insert it as long as it's at the top, somewhere up here. You could even go into the bump if you wanted to pull up a stitch. Wherever you want to go is fine. I usually end up just going through the 2 strands at the end to pull up a loop, to chain 1 into my last stitch. All right, let's work these off, and then I'm going to let you go. First thing first is yarn over, pull through 3, chain 1, pull through the stitch, chain 1, pull through the stitch, chain 1. And when I say pull through the stitch, it's yarn over, pull through 2. But I like to think of I'm going through the stitch and then I'm chaining 1. That way I don't forget, because it's really easy to be like, where am I now? So I like to do it in one fluid motion of pull through the stitch, chain 1, pull through the stitch, chain 1. And if you do get lost, just remember, if there is this little chain here, that means you've already made your chain 1. When you pull through the stitch, there's no chain on your hook. Because I know sometimes you're going to walk away half, or somebody's going to need your attention and you're going to forget where you are. It's not a big deal. But it definitely, after this section, you'll be a master at looking at your stitches. Now we have 2 stitches left. We're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. All right, let's take a look. You can see this week it's super open and airy, and these clusters almost give you a little bit of texture because they pop up a little bit. And that's what you like. I really, really love this lace this week. It's unusual. You don't see it anywhere else. It's really interesting. And just like last week, you'll do a section of lace and then some reverse stitches, and a section of lace and some reverse stitches, and grow your project out. Then again, you'll have a choice when you're done if you want to go ahead and block this so you can see it, or if you just want to wait for play 4. I know, I'm giving you a lot this week, but I know you can do it. You're going to be fabulous. So go ahead, work through it all. You just know that you have all the skills from what we've been building on. I've been sneakily building you up to get to here. You have it and you can do it, and you're going to be amazing. And when you're done or halfway through or wherever you are in the process, take a picture and post the project wherever you are. I want to see it. Post it in the Marley's Minions Facebook page. We can't wait to like and love everything that you've been doing. All right, I will see you again for play 4. Enjoy this week.